And welcome back to the Upside Sports Network. My name is Michael. Appreciate you guys joining us on a busy Friday evening out there. A little bit late tonight, but we wanted to get out some videos for you guys today. But one thing we really wanted to dig into on this early season anyway is what's going on in the American League West. I mean, we're talking about a team that just won the World Series in the Texas Rangers, a team that won the World Series not too long ago in the Houston Astros, a team everybody had as one of the top two or three teams in the entire AL in the Seattle Mariners this year, and just nobody's really grabbed this division, and taken it and ran with it. I mean, the Oakland A's, for heck, they're look at the division right now. They got 8 wins in the division, more than they had at this point by the end of the month of April last year. This is very surprising, the underperformance anyway in the division, and there's still some great play out there. The Yankees have played well. The Dodgers are still trying to figure things out, but they're playing decent baseball. They're 12-9, I believe. The NL Central and the AL Central are both playing well above their heads. And you look at that AL West division, and just things are not working out. So let's dig into what's actually going on in the American League West. But before we get there, make sure you guys hit that like on the bottom of the video. Subscribe to us here on YouTube. Follow us over on Facebook, Upside Sports Network, and on X, Upside SN. Alrighty, let's dig into this division. Looking at the standings as they are right now, up to the minute anyway, Texas, barely above 500, is the only team in this division above 500. 11-10, they just lost tonight in a tough game anyway to the Atlanta Braves. Texas, however, has been devastated by pitching injuries. That they really haven't solved that bullpen either. They've gotten some good performances, don't get me wrong, from Kirby Yates and David Robertson, two guys they knew would be steady in that back end. But the guys that we were hoping to have a nice bounce back year from, Jose Leclerc, that seemed to figure out things down the stretch last year, especially once they finally got into the postseason. Josh Sborz has been on the injured list. You look at guys like Brock Burke, who they counted on at some points over the last couple of years to get some tough outs anyway, late in games. Jonathan Hernandez hasn't been available. This is definitely a team in flux. And when you look at the call-ups they're having to do on the roster right now, just from the pitching perspective, they're literally next man up, last man standing, that kind of thing right now as far as that Texas Rangers pitching staff. They literally just had Jack Leiter come up, make his major league debut, and immediately get sent back down. Not because of the tough outing he had in his first game ever against the Detroit Tigers, but because they just need arms. That's how dire it is right now for the Texas Rangers. And I'm not saying that this can't be turned around or that they're in bad straits, when you're looking at season-long goals anyway for the Texas Rangers. But for right now, they are absolutely thin in that bullpen. They're absolutely thin in that starting rotation. Now, there is going to be some silver lining here. You look at the roster, they're getting a lot of good young pitchers anyway, some quality major league innings right now. Getting them some exposure to the big league level. They did that with Cole Winn as well earlier this season, getting some major league debuts out of the way and trying to to at least get their feet wet on the major league stage. Now, the other silver lining for the Texas Rangers is they got a ton of talent on that injured list that is going to be coming back a lot sooner than we all had originally expected. Max Scherzer, we thought probably going to miss the first 2, maybe 3 months of the season. Sounds like he could be back in the middle part of May, possibly even earlier. He threw a live bullpen session anyway, simulated game for the Texas Rangers the other day. This is April 19th, so he's throwing a sim game right now. You're probably looking at him building up his arm over the next 3 to 4 weeks. That would put him in the middle of May as to when he comes back. Texas would absolutely love to get him back. Now, we haven't heard any update yet as far as Bradford, if he's going to be coming back shortly or not. We will keep our eyes peeled for that one. But for the AL West, where are the wins? I mean, Texas is a team that is going through injuries. They're missing their 2 corner infielders, Nathaniel Lowe and Josh Young. Lowe missed the start of the year and is looking like he's just getting into his rehab assignment. Could be back in the next week. Josh Young started off the season great, even after the injury issues that he had at the end of last year, in the offseason, in spring training. He looked like he was a man of fire. Got hit in the wrist, going to miss 8 to 10 weeks, and was put on the 60-day IL. That left some opportunity there, some at-bats at third base. And this offense, which was expected to be a behemoth all year long with the rookies and Evan Carter and Wyatt Langford, they've gotten off to, we'll call it scuffling starts. and this offense isn't exactly carrying this team right now. And so when you look at this roster for the Texas Rangers, yes, they're going to have some guys coming back, but they're going to have some better performance down the road as well. Looking at the rest of this division, Seattle Mariners, 9 and 10. We're talking about a team that everybody thought had a great pitching staff, made some nice moves offensively in the offseason, but they are going to have to still do more at the trade deadline to compete with the Rangers and Astros. Astros have been abysmal, much like the Rangers. They have had their own injury issues in that starting staff. I don't believe they have as high of a ceiling anyway as Texas does, just because they just have more talent in Texas at this point. But you look at the top end of that lineup: Jose Altuve, Yordan Alvarez, Alex Bregman, Kyle Tucker, Diaz. This is a very formidable top half of the lineup. They still have some good length out of that lineup as well, with Pena, with McCormick. I'm curious to see, what ultimately happens, with the Astros once we get to the trade deadline, where they are in the standings. But right now, the only team with a positive run differential, the Texas Rangers, and they've been scuffling. Dodger stock billionaire team, cool story. Put up the link. As far as the Dodgers go, they are a fantastic team. They're going to get better. I don't think they suck, obviously. They have a great 1, 2, 3, 4 in their lineup. They're going to get better. I understand teams that don't exactly have the payroll to spend at the level of the Dodgers obviously think this is absolutely terrible for baseball. But baseball, from a business perspective, from a watchability perspective, absolutely is so much better when there is the behemoths on either coast that bring the eyeballs, that bring the attention. That's what gets Major League Baseball its money. When you look at all the issues for regional sports networks and the national TV contracts Major League Baseball is going to have to renegotiate that have already been agreed to, baseball needs to have those coastal teams finally pick up the speed here, and the Dodgers are certainly doing their part. Now the Yankees, they've struggled over the past couple of years. They're looking like they're going to be right back into contention on the American League side. So baseball should be back in the good graces of these cable TV networks, etc., which I know for the fan bases isn't exactly great, but you always, when you're, say, the Pittsburgh Pirates, even though they're off to a great start, when are they going to sell out the most games? When they're playing another team like the Cleveland Guardians? Or are they going to sell out more likely when they face the New York Yankees or the LA Dodgers? It's good for those teams to be able to get those teams in there. That's why they decrease the amount of divisional play to allow these big teams to go around in every single market, be able to touch on these teams and get some of that money coming their way. Now, as far as an on-the-field perspective, I mean, you just got to go out there and win. I mean, Shohei Ohtani has struggled with runners in scoring position. He's not pitching this year. The bullpen can be dicey for the Dodgers at best at certain points. The Dodgers' depth isn't exactly what it used to be 3, 4, 5 years ago. Certainly, they're having some great performances so far this year from Teoscar Hernandez, among others. But you still have to go out there and win the baseball game. You look at teams like the Diamondbacks went out there and still improved their offense. They have a good 1 through 5 in their rotation. I'm still not picking them to beat the Dodgers, but I am saying they're a team that's trying to at least win in those instances. And I don't think that it's going to be a, hey, they spent so much money, they are obviously going to win scenario for the Dodgers against the Diamondbacks. I don't buy that. I think every team has a chance, even if you're a team like the Diamondbacks, against the Dodgers. Now, there are teams that are obviously going through rebuilds, and that's just the cycle of baseball. Those teams are obviously going to lose more games than not. But the teams that are in contention, that are trying to win the World Series, that are trying to make it to the postseason, all of those teams can beat any team in Major League Baseball at any time. Now, the better teams, obviously, over 162 games, those teams are ultimately going to win more money. I don't expect, or are going to win more games. I don't think the Dodgers are going to be a team that's going to end up third place in their division. I think they're going to be at the top of that division. They're going to go out there and fill whatever holes they have. But I'm just saying, money, as much as it might suck to watch them get every free agent that they want, get the top end talent, etc., I mean, you still have to build your own baseball team. Draft and develop, sign free agents, fill the right holes, get guys on good years, good cheap contracts, overperforming their value. Just because the Dodgers went out there and spent, $700 million over 10 years on Shohei Ohtani does not mean that contract is going to be good for them in the long run. You look at the Boston Red Sox years and years and years ago, the reason that turned around the Dodgers is that they went out there and spent the money on negative assets to be able to jumpstart their ability to contend in the NL West. And ever since, they haven't looked back. You look at the Boston Red Sox; they really haven't spent at that level ever since that trade, where they sent away Carl Crawford and Adrian Gonzalez, among others. They tried to clear their books and really haven't invested at the level that they did since then. Back to our AL West discussion, though. Let's turn our attention to the LA Angels. 9-11 so far. Ron Washington again called that early team meeting after the first two losses of the season, and everybody's like, "Hold on, Wash. There is this a little early to be calling a team meeting." Obviously not. They've certainly turned things around. This team is playing inspired baseball. Do I think they're going to win the division? Absolutely not. Do I think they're going to get into the wild card? Absolutely not. Do I think that they'll hang around at this point now through probably August, maybe early September? I do. I think Ron Washington is one of the best baseball minds that we've ever seen in Major League Baseball history. I do not say that with just throwing him flowers for no reason. I think he is legitimately that good of a manager. I think he's that knowledgeable of the game. He is an absolute wizard as far as motivating young men in that locker room. He will get the best out of those LA Angels. And he kind of had the finger on the pulse 2 games in that said, hey, this ain't the right vibe. We ain't going the right direction. We need to turn this ship around. I'll give you an example of what not to do. You look at the Colorado Rockies, a team that I've been telling you for the past 2 or 3 years does not have a direction. Their front office can't seem to get out of their own way. Doesn't seem to want to know, or doesn't seem to have an idea of what they can do to solve the issue for their pitching staff. We all know what it is. Fastballs, changeups, and high to low. No more east to west stuff. Those kinds of things don't work in high altitude and colder temperatures, and yet they continue to try to get guys with movement or with one pitch instead of pitchers who can actually be consistent starting pitchers. And I know they've been snake bit. I know they have. But a team like the LA Angels that is so low as far as talent compared to where they were even a year ago is able to be in contention here in the early parts of April and likely all the way through the trade deadline. Whereas the team like the Colorado Rockies, they're being investigated right now by the feds because of what they're doing traveling around in airplanes. Which team is going the correct direction here? Bud Black, I know you're a great baseball mind. I know you've got the respect of a lot of people around the game. But when you have the feds investigating how you're traveling on planes, I don't care if it was one of your players. I don't care if it was somebody just goofing off. It sends the wrong message as to what's going on in your clubhouse, as to what's going on around your team, what your priorities are as an organization. Whereas a team like the Angels that I told you guys did organizational malpractice last year. Perry Manassian, I told you should never be a general manager ever again in Major League Baseball after the debauchery that happened with Shohei Ohtani. And maybe that's the owner, the owner there saying, Artie Moreno saying, I don't want to trade Shohei. I think we can keep him. I told you Perry Manassian should never be a GM again in Major League Baseball because of how he handled that situation. I don't care if the owner said, do not trade Shohei Ohtani. At that point, you hand in your resignation. If you can't if they're not letting you do your job, you'd hand in your resignation, say, I can't handle my job the way you've set up this or the Shohei Ohtani thing. He should have handed in his resignation if he knew that was the correct direction and the owner told him no, and he continued to try to tell him this is the correct direction. Owner continued to tell him no. He had options. Perry Manassian, I still hold, should not be a GM in Major League Baseball. Meanwhile, the Colorado Rockies, I feel for you Rockies fans. I was very young when I was a Minnesota Twins fan, Colorado Rockies fan, and Texas Rangers fan all at the same time. Chicago Cubs, Atlanta Braves, all when I was like really, really young. Kind of had a fondness for the way the Rockies played baseball, offense, all that kind of thing. When you're a kid, offense is what you want to see. And that's exactly what they deliver. But this team is absolutely rudderless, and they have been for years. That entire organization needs to be shaken up. And I'm not saying that this is the thing that's going to cause it to happen, but you look at the way the Angels are in the standings right now, and you look at the direction of the Rockies, and you look at the direction of the Angels. Angels now have a path forward even after Shohei Ohtani, even after organizational malpractice by Perry Manassian. Whereas the Rockies, twiddling their thumbs for a 3rd, 4th, 5th, 10th straight year. Come on now. Now let's get to the Oakland A's. But before we do, Vaughn, appreciate that $1.99. Couldn't agree with you more as far as the dollars and so forth. Dollars do count for something, But when it comes to play on the field, that's what really gets things going as far as discussion. If the Dodgers start losing with all their money that they've spent, that will be one topic of discussion. Everybody expects them to win because of the money they spent, but they still have to go out there and do it, and that's where the game comes in. To the Oakland A's, another team well overperforming their expectations. They're 8-12 so far, and they really invested this offseason, something we have not seen them do over the past several years. Now, they didn't exactly go out there and spend on multi-year contracts or anything like that, but they got some good pitching options that I think are going to lead to some successful returns early in the season, and we're seeing that 8-12. But I think towards the trade deadline, they can turn around, pivot those guys out for guys that might help them in the future. Now, I know Oakland A's fans are not exactly fond of hearing more trades of guys they have on their roster, but the prospects that they have acquired that usually pan out every time they try to rebuild like this every 5-6 years haven't worked this time. Shea Langeliers looks like the only Major League roster player right now that's going to be a Major League roster player in 5 years. This team does not have a future right now. Now they're going to be going to Sacramento. They'll eventually end up in Las Vegas. The ownership there says, oh yeah, we're going to spend at the top of the market. We're going to be up there with the likes of the Yankees and Dodgers. I'll believe that when I see it, first and foremost. I don't think they'll get anywhere close to that, but anywhere higher than where they've been would be an impressive start. I'll put it that way. I'm not saying that their relocation process has worked and has been swimmingly and has been great, that their ownership hasn't made mistakes along the way. I'm not saying anything like that. What I am saying is that they are spending a little bit this offseason. Good for them. They're going to be in a better spot after the trade deadline when they trade away those pieces. Good for them. And they at least have a stadium solution for the next few years. Now, is it a great solution? By no means. But it looks like they at least have some destination worked out and know what their future is going to hold for the next 2 to 3 years. Whereas with the Oakland Coliseum, you couldn't say that from year to year. That building should darn near be condemned at this point. I mean, it's just the way things are in Oakland. And now we're finally going to see at least a change for them, and hopefully, when they get to Vegas, some silver lining. Appreciate you guys joining us once again. If you guys wouldn't mind hitting that like and subscribe if you haven't already. One other team in here is, of course, the Houston Astros. Astros have played well. As far as at times with their offense. Yordan Alvarez had struggled early in the season. He's been knocking the cover off the ball. Jose Altuve, same kind of a thing. He's been another great player for them early parts of the season. But their entire starting staff started the year on the IL, and it just didn't work out for them as far as the pitching side. Blanco, of course, has been a nice bright spot for them. But you look at that run differential, -21. That's where they are this early into the season. They're 7-14. It's just not exactly looking bright for them. They've had some tough competition, don't get me wrong. They played Texas, 7 times? They played the Atlanta Braves a bunch already. I mean, I understand the road's been tough here in the early going. But you look at what they've got right now. They've got to beat up on the Washington Nationals. That's not a team that's going to be competing for a World Series. But we will see. If you guys wouldn't mind, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Really appreciate those. Had some of those messages pop off of there for just a moment. I apologize for that. We'll see what's going on here in just a second. But that's kind of where the AL West is right now. It's a pretty good division, but that's clearly not performing up to what we expected here in the early parts of the season. 11-10 for the Texas Rangers is taking it right now. And this is a team that's going to get better. This is the opportunity right now for teams like the Mariners, like the Astros, to gain ground, surpass the Texas Rangers, and get out in front a little bit here. And those teams are treading water or failing to at least stay afloat right now. Meanwhile, the Rangers, whose offense isn't exactly lighting the world on fire, their pitching staff leaves a lot to be desired. Their bullpen's blowing games every now and again, just like we expected they did last year and hoped that they had solved going into this season, has also been a problem, and yet they're still on top. If you guys wouldn't mind letting us know in the comments section, which team do you think ultimately wins this division? And early on, what are your impressions of the AL West? What's the biggest problem with the Astros, obviously, besides injury? If you look at the Angels, how happy are you, if you're an Angels fan, with where you are this early into the Ron Washington tenure? And as always, appreciate you guys joining us. We'll be having a live NBA playoffs for you guys this weekend. Make sure you guys join us for that. And then on Monday, we'll do our weekly update for you guys as well. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. We'll see you guys again here in the next couple of days. Probably tomorrow is when we'll do our playoff live, so make sure you tune in for that one as well. Appreciate you guys joining us. Y'all have a great evening.